everything you do in business is going to have failure points. You cannot have success without failure. And so what that means is if you're optimizing to never have failure, you're going to grow really, 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 really slow. But if you know that there's going to be failure and we just try to do as much as possible to find the failure, once we eliminate the failure, then we're able to succeed. And, there's a lot of psychology and stuff that goes into that I won't get into right now, really just for the sake of time. But the bottom line is so many people stop before their goal happens on their very last roadblock. It's almost like the universe conspires against you to prevent you from being successful, but the universe isn't strong enough to stop you, but it can fake you out by giving you a challenge that you think you cannot overcome. If you overcome that challenge, then you're able to have the final result. So we've hiked a lot of 14ers. Being in Colorado, we've hiked we call them 14ers. You're not in Colorado, you don't know what they're. We call them 14ers because they're all 14,000 feet or above. But we don't hike the whole 14,000 feet. You start at 10,000 feet, 11,000 feet, and you hike 3,000 feet in elevation, which is usually a 3 to 5 mile hike. And what happens is after you get past about 12,000 feet, the air starts getting thinner. And so not only are you climbing and you're using your legs and you're working and you're already getting tired, the air has less oxygen in it. And when you get to 13,000 feet, it has a lot less oxygen. Like your people black out sometimes. I mean, that's how it is at that particular level. So what happens a lot of times is that people will get to a certain point and you have like a false summit. So just if you're looking at anything, you know that if it rolls, this roll right here, if it's in your vision before the peak, it looks like the peak. So you get to that particular thing and you get there and you look and you're like, oh my goodness, that's another mile. There's no way I can make it. Or sometimes you're looking at it and the clouds are starting to form. There's a rock formation that you're going to have to go over, and you look at it and it looks really, really hard. And a lot of people, when they see that, they quit and turn around. What they don't know, if they don't have a guide or if they haven't done it before, is that if they walk it out, when they get close to those rocks, they realize there's a passageway around it. So often we quit success because we see something in the future or something happens today that stops us. Has that ever happened with any of you? Like you quit before the very last roadblock. And the thing is, you don't know what that last roadblock is. All right. And so what I want to encourage you today on day 2 is that you will push through. Like, even if you hit a roadblock today, that you will push, that you will just push through. I want to talk about just for a second the story of David and Goliath in the Bible, right? So I think most of you know the story of David and Goliath in the Bible, right? So the enemy has this giant, I don't know, he's 9 feet tall, and he's coming up to the bluff every single day, and he's challenging the Israelite army. He's challenging me. Send me a man to fight me. Send me a man to fight me. And, although the warriors are scared because they're only 5.5 feet tall, and even though they have all of their armor, they know this giant is just going to pummel them, and they don't want to be pummeled. They're scared. They don't have any courage, right? And so this little shepherd boy, David, he's the younger brother of some of the brothers that are out there. They're supposed to be fighting Goliath, but they're all too timid to be able to fight Goliath. So here's this shepherd boy, and he takes care of the sheep, and he keeps the foxes and the lions and the bears from eating the sheep. And so he goes and he takes lunch to the brothers. Well, when he gets there, he probably doesn't realize how tall the giant is, or maybe he doesn't. I don't know. I don't want to take any credit away from David, but he gets there and he looks at the giant and he says to his people, to his brothers, and he says to the other people, he says, "Why are you letting this giant taunt you? You guys, you have your armor, you're strong, you're tough. Why are you allowing that to happen?" And I think that it's easy for us to look at that and go, well, that's a shepherd boy and he doesn't know what he's talking about. And, there's a process for fighting war, right? There's a process. You have to put on your armor and you have to go stand 100 yards away and you have to have all your spears and you have to do everything a certain way in order to fight. So David wasn't a fighting person. He just protected the sheep from the lions and the bears and the foxes. That was his frame. I want you to imagine for just a moment that you're David, almost like Elon Musk. Remember, we were talking earlier. Elon Musk didn't know the rocket business, but Elon Musk comes in and says, you know what? I've done the back of the napkin on this. I think I can make rockets for 10% of what the government can make rockets. And I think I can actually make them safer. And I think I can actually make them safer. Doesn't know anything about rockets. He's David compared to Goliath. So David comes in and he finally gets to have a hearing with the king. And the king says, you know, what are you talking? You're talking really big. You know, what can you do? This Goliath. I want to have a crack at the Goliath. And so finally the king relents and he says, okay, here's my sword, here's my spear, here's my 50-pound armor. Put all that arm, you can go fight him. And so David puts all the armor on and he says, you know what? I can't fight with all this armor. That's like you saying, I'm not going to run my business by taking 3 years to follow every single step to write a book, because that's what a book or a coach told me I have to do. Instead, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to be inspired, and I'm going to write it quickly. So David says, you know what? You can have your armor. He says, I fought bears and I fought lions before, and I've killed them. And this Goliath is no different than the lions and the bears. Just let me have some stones. I'm going to go do my thing. And so David goes out and he does his thing. And here's the thing. We know the story. He puts his rocks in his slingshot, and he knows what a slingshot will do because he's been practicing it again, fighting off the animals that were going to eat his sheep for years and years. He was good with his weapon, and he took it and he slung it, and of course he slew the Goliath that nobody else with all their armor and all their spears and all their training and all their structure were able to do for perhaps months and months and months. How many of you kind of feel like that Goliath or that David up against a Goliath in your industry, that your project just feels like you are David and the industry is Goliath, or the thing you don't know about marketing is Goliath, or finishing the book is Goliath, or getting back on the speaking tour is Goliath? I want to encourage you to have a David mindset, to just say, you know what? I'm going to go in there and I'm going to do in a day or 2 or 3. And it's okay if I'm unconventional. And I am just going to do it.